We're talking today with Mr. Raymond Fink of Grand Rapids, Michigan. The interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Mr. Fink, can you tell us a little bit about your own background? To start with, where and when were you born?
I was born in what is now Kentwood, Michigan. It was a part of Grand Rapids at the time. It was on 36th Street, which was Allen Road at that time.
And what did your family do for a living?
My father primarily was into farming and poultry husbandry.
And was he able to, did he own his own land or did he rent land?
He owned several acres located on 36th Street, which was purchased by the Grand Rapids Airport to enlarge the original Grand Rapids Airport. And then we moved to Marne on a farm.
All right. And then did you finish high school?
I finished high school in Marne. It was called Berlin High School at the time.
Right. And then when did you graduate from high school?
Technically, I didn't graduate.
Okay.
I do have a diploma, but when I was in the 12th grade, I enlisted in the Navy, and at that time, I was called to duty before the graduating class.
Okay. So
before the diplomas.
before they handed out the diplomas.
So my mother went to the ceremonies, and she received my diploma.
All right.
And it was a pretty tough honor at the time.
Now, during the war, while the war was going on, were you paying much attention to it? Were you following the news of the war and all of that?
Not really. I just understood that a lot of fellas was living in foxholes, and I didn't really want to sleep in a foxhole, so I decided maybe I better enlist in the Navy. And so that's what I did.
All right. And
I
so
was 17 at the time.
okay. And so this is the spring or summer of *45 when you sign up? Or?
Yes, it was in early 45, yeah.
Okay. And then
In fact, my graduating class was in Chicago on their skip day or whatever it is, and I was out pedaling a boat on Lake Michigan learning how to run a lifeboat. So it did kind of interfere with my life, but as I look back at it, it was a fabulous experience.
All right. Now, where did they send you for basic training?
At Great Lakes there, Great Lakes, Illinois, yeah.
Okay.
Company 693, 1945.
And can you describe the experience there? What did they have you do when you were in training?
Oh, it was pretty standardized. One of the things that impressed me the most was abandoning ship drill when they had a gigantic pool there and a real high tower, and you had to get up on that tower and jump off on it. Well, I wasn't a very good swimmer anyway, so I jumped and I got back to the surface, but it wasn't fun. But that's probably the most impressive thing in basic training.
Okay. Now, when you had to do that, were there guys who just wouldn't do it?
I think there were a few, yes.
All right. Now, did you have to learn military discipline and Navy rules and that kind of thing?
Oh, yes. One thing that sticks in mind in particular is it was getting towards summer and it was pretty hot there. And we had our dark Navy uniforms on in the morning, and all of a sudden it comes over the loudspeakers, you have to go back and change your uniforms. So everybody had to go back to their barracks and put on their whites, you know. Boy, this is sure stupid, you know, but that's military, and that's part of the discipline, I suppose.
Right. Now, did you get any kind of weapons training or any classes, or was it?
We had some basic training in anti-aircraft and rifles and that sort of thing. In regard to the anti-aircraft training, I was assigned to a 20 millimeter gun, and I was on the very end of the row of guns. They were mounted along Lake Michigan. And there was a tow plane with a target, which was a long ways behind, but the wind was blowing from the other guns to the gun I was firing. So I'm out there, you know, But pretty soon the smoke come over and I couldn't see anything, you know. So the instructor comes running up and stopped me. He's afraid I was going to shoot the airplane down. I was doing the towing.
All right. Now, how long did the training take? About how long were you there?
I don't think it was over 8-9 weeks, if I
Yeah.
remember right. Yeah.
That's about right.
Yeah.
Once you completed that, where did you go next?
After Great Lakes, I came home on leave for a few days. Then I went back to Great Lakes and boarded a troop train, and we took that train to San Diego, California, which was quite a trip.
All right. Now, how long did it take to get out there?
I think 4 or 5 days.
All right.
It was a long time.
And what did you do all that time on the train?
Sweated a lot. It was hot, and they had the galleys on the train, a separate car, you know, for cooking and stuff. Man, it got hot in there. I'll tell you like that. But it was kind of interesting along the way too. That I remember Albuquerque in particular. The guys wanted to mail letters, and there were people along the railroad tracks that would pick up these letters. And that was their dedication. I mean, mail a letter and flip it out the window, and these people come along and pick them up and mail letters for you. So.
All right. Now, the train was. Could you look out the windows and that kind of thing?
Oh, we did,
Yeah.
and probably the most impressive thing in that regard to me is when we got to the Rocky Mountains, we stopped, and 2 more engines come out and got behind us and started pushing. So we had 1 pulling and 2 pushing to get over the mountain. I was kind of impressed about that too.
Had you ever taken a long train trip before that?
Oh no, never. No. I was just a kid. You
Sure.
know?
Yeah. What was the farthest you'd been away from home before?
Oh, probably Traverse City.
All right. So you get out to San Diego. Do you have to stay there for a while, or do they get you on a
We
boat?
were in San Diego for maybe a week or so. And during that time, I guess previous to that actually, the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And by the way, I think that could have saved my butt. A lot of people wonder about should that bomb been dropped or not. Who am I to say? But I was slated for the invasion of Japan. That's all there's to it.
Now, as a Navy man, of course, you didn't really know what kind of assignment you would have at that point, right? You were a replacement, basically,
Well,
or
when you're a fireman, that puts you not putting out fires.
Right.
It puts you in a position of mechanical, electrical, maintenance of a ship or a base or that sort of thing.
Right.
You're not necessarily not a fighting role at all.
Right.
But,
yeah, you're working with machinery either in an engine room or on a base.
generators and supportive things like that. Yeah.
Okay. Now, did they give you much specialized training for that, or just very
No.
basic?
Not at all.
No. They just said, "Here, this is your job."
Yeah, and I think they kind of sorted you out. You took in Great Lakes, they tested you for different things, then they would aim you in the direction they thought they fitted. And
Okay.
I guess being a farm boy, I'd done a lot of tinkering on the
Right.
farm, you know, so it seemed logical, and it worked out fine.
Okay. Now you get then out to California. Now, did the war end before you shipped out? When did the Japanese surrender? Was that?
Well, it was the 15th of August, I think. And I was in San Diego waiting to get shipped overseas, and the war ended. So I thought, boy, I ain't going to have to go now, you know. But it didn't turn out that way. Naturally, the fellows that had been over there all those years had priority to come back, so I went over and we replaced those fellows that was out there for years, which was justified. I had no problem with that. I just was kind of surprised that
Right.
I went.
Now, what kind of ship did they put you in?
We went over on it's an attack transport. It was
So it was a Navy ship then.
it
and
was
not
a Navy attack transport.
Mhm.
I think it was a APA. Oneida, I think was the name
Okay.
of the ship. Yeah.
All right. Now, did the ship sail by itself, or with you?
Yes, it was a single sailing. Yeah.
All right.
It was just loaded with sailors and of quite a few Marines too was on it too.
All right.
But it was kind of laughable because the Marines sat there and shined their rifles all the time, you know, and the Swabbies run around heckling them and because they had to, the sailors didn't have to do anything, you know, and they had to shine their guns all the time. So I decided I never want to be a Marine.
Now, where did you sail to?
We sailed directly to Guam, no stops.
Okay. And about how long did that take?
I think it was 13 days.
All right. And how did you like sailing?
Well, after we got out from shore, from the land swells, I liked it fine. But for about 2 or 3 days, when we were get away from the shallower water, I didn't like it at all. Because, boy, I sure got seasick, and I wasn't the only one.
Yeah. I mean, that happened to most people out there, and they don't all admit it, but it seemed to happen to most of them.
Yeah, I sure got sick.
Now, was the weather good otherwise?
Yeah, it was good. Something that I do recollect was kind of silly on my part, but I didn't catch on then. Is I looked out over the ocean and I seen this look like smoke coming out, you know, and I pointed out there to these guys, and boy, did I get laughed at. It was a whale.
Oh.
It's spouting, you know, but it was a long way away. What's smoke doing out here in the middle of the ocean, you know? So they got me on that. It was kind
All right. Now, how did you spend your time when you were on the boat?
of, playing hearts mostly.
All right. Now, once you get out there to Guam, what did you see when you got there?
Well, when we first got there, I seen a big rock from the ocean, and then we pulled into the harbor there, and they didn't have any docks or anything like that, or very few, so they put us on landing craft and brought us to shore that way. And it was in the rainy season, a monsoon season as they call it, and it was nasty. We didn't have any rain gear for that climate, you know, so we went around pretty well soaked for quite a few days. But eventually we got rain gear, and it was okay. I remember one particular time that we were, well, a galley was a big tent, you know, so I was in line there and waiting to eat, and I looked down in the mud, and the water run right through the tent, of course, and I kicked it a few times. I looked, and I kicked it a few more times. Well, come to find out, it was a skull. And whether it was Japanese or American, I have no idea, so I kicked the dirt back over it.
Leave well enough alone
It
at
went
that
down
point.
the line, but I'll never forget that.
All right. Now, what kind of duty or assignment did you have once you were there?
Well, when I was first there, I was on what they call generator watch, which was to keep the base. We had big Caterpillar generators that keep the electric going, of course. And kind of a funny story there too. They had movies almost every night, you know, for the troops. And so I was on generator watch, and it was in the evening when the movie was on. And I really wanted to go to the movie, so I went. I left the generator sitting there running, and I'm watching the movie. I stood in the back, you know, so I'm watching the movie, and all of a sudden the movie quit. And I thought, oh crap, this was pretty good, you know. I wanted to see this, and all of a sudden they hit me. My generator quit.
Oh.
So I go running like heck back to the generator and got another one fired up, and movie continued, but I never seen the end of it.
Hmm. Now, were these diesel powered or
They
gasoline
were
powered?
Caterpillar diesels, I believe. Yeah.
All right. Now, what was actually happening on Guam at that time? Because the war is over in
Oh,
principle.
okay. That was just a temporary job. After that, I got signed to the main galley at the Naval Operational Base as a boiler operator,
Hmm.
and the boilers furnished the cooking heat
Hmm.
and for the big cauldrons and things they cooked in. So most of the time I was a boiler operator, which was no big deal. All we had to do was make sure there's water in the boiler and fuel in the tank.
Right.
Well, it was kind of a goof-off job, but I guess somebody had to do it.
Right. Now, can you tell me a little bit about just what was going on Guam at that time?
Well, yes, I was quite surprised to learn that there was many Japanese that had not surrendered, and sometimes it got pretty somber. I seen them burying fellas in military cemetery there. I was aware that the Japanese snipers were shooting Marines yet, which I had no idea. I thought the war is over.
Hmm.
Nobody gets shot, But the snipers would lay in wait in the jungle, and when they'd see Marine trucks or, any vehicles coming down the road, they'd zero in on the drivers. And of course, naturally, if they shot the driver, the truck would go careening down a ravine or something. So there was a lot of mostly Marines killed after the war, and I don't know how many people know about that, but it was a sad, tough thing.
Hmm. Now, were the Marines on the island trying to do anything about that?
They would make sweeps now and then, and they did get a lot of them, and quite a few of them just surrendered by themselves. They would broadcast leaflets, and but another story that would go with that, we lived in Quonset huts, and it was near the submarine base, and naturally you do your own laundry, so I would do my jeans and stuff and hang them out at night, and I'd go out the next morning and my clothes would be gone. And I thought, well, one of my fellow sailors was too lazy to do their own laundry, and they were stealing my clothes. Well, it seems that soon after that, there was a Japanese soldier caught in a dump, which was right across the street from where we lived. Well, so I feel to this day that he was stealing my clothes at night, and he was wearing them, and I do have a little documentation
Right.
that indicates that. So,
Okay. Now, was it common for some of the Japanese to try to get into the chow lines and get food or that
I've
kind of thing?
never been aware of that, never seen that happen.
Okay.
No.
Now, were there? How would they? As you said, the Japanese they're out there on the island. I guess the island was not one that had a really big battle on it when the Americans came in. The Japanese did not defend that as strongly, and so there would have been still Japanese just up there someplace who wouldn't know what was going on. Some of the other islands they fought over kind of inch by inch, and there wouldn't be many left. They're up there, and so they would try to drop leaflets to them to tell them the war was over.
Well, they went out with a big broadcasting system, big speakers, and they tried that, and they dropped leaflets. But some of these people were so dedicated to the emperor that they would not believe that the war was over, and that's why most of them, the holdouts, were out there. They didn't believe that, and of course they were dedicated to dying for the emperor,
Right.
and that's what they was going to do.
Now, did they try bringing in other Japanese people to?
Yes, they did, officers and like that. They did bring other ones in, and but it was tough for a lot of families back in the United States
Mm-hmm.
to lose them people. It's always bothered me a little.
Yeah, because the war was supposed to be over.
Supposed to be over. They thought their loved ones were coming home, and they never did.
We'll just let that ring. It doesn't count to 10 for us. Okay. All right. Now, how long were you based on Guam? Was that about a year?
I
or-
think it was slightly over a year. Yes.
All right.
My biggest impression of Guam was the tremendous amount of supplies that were assembled there for the invasion of Japan. I mean, it was a jumping off place for the invasion of Japan. And aircraft folded, wing aircraft, row after row of them, auxiliary gas tanks piled way up, barrels of gasoline, lifeboats. I mean, anything that you need in a war. Ammunition.
Sure.
I mean, it was just a tremendous thing to see. Of course, this little old kid from Marne was quite impressed.
Right. Now, what happened to all of that stuff? What did they do with it?
Well, a lot of it was just plain destroyed. For instance, the Jeeps, brand new Jeeps, they're still in the crates, were taken to the end of the breakwater and smashed and pushed off with bulldozers to extend the breakwater up there. They said that it would cost too much to ship them back to the United States. That may or may not be true, but I don't know. It was kind of nuts to me. And I think there were some airplanes destroyed that way too, but the Jeeps, I know, I've seen that happen, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they may have saved the sea rations and stuff and used them in Korea or Vietnam or someplace.
Well,
But
that's possible, yeah.
at least that's what the Marines will tell you if they were in Vietnam. That's,
I don't know about that.
But anyway, now, over the course of the time when you were on Guam, did the number of personnel go down? Did a lot of people go home while you were there?
Well, yes, they did. Many. In fact, the 3rd Marine Division was still there when I got there, and there was a Marine there that was a brother of one of my fellow sailors. So the two brothers got together there. They hadn't seen each other in years, so they were still there living in tents, and then they got shipped out, of course. And a lot of the people in at the time, including myself, were in the Navy Reserves. So we just kind of filled this gap in till the Navy had trained their regular Navy personnel, and when they were trained, they came in and took it over, and we got discharged.
All right. Now, what particular incidents or events do you remember from your time there? I mean, you mentioned something about having a ride in a submarine at some point. Was that on Guam?
I had a chance, a friend of mine from Kansas got to know the skipper of a submarine, and he finagled us a ride on a submarine. I thought, well, that's cool, you know. So we got on, and well, before we got on, there's a skipper standing there, or some officer with a clipboard, and he said that we got to find out who you are and your serial number and your home address and everything. And I, why do you want to know that? He said, well, this is a sailing list, and if we don't come back, the Navy wants to know who was on that submarine. So, maybe this ain't such a good idea after all. You know? Anyway, I went and got seasick. A submarine is, I guess, built for going under the water, not on the surface. And it bobbed around a while. And actually, the water we were in is called the Marianas Trench, which is 7 miles deep, I think. It's the deepest ocean trench in the world. So
if you went down, you might have kept going.
Oh, a long ways. But anyway, they done some runs on I guess, derelict ships and things. And it was interesting. I certainly wasn't a submariner, and I didn't want to be one. But they sure had good food, I got to say that.
Well, did they submerge while you were on it, or they
Four
just...
times, yeah,
Okay.
we were under the. Well, I was glad when they did, I'll tell you. I felt a lot better.
All right. How long did the trip take?
Oh, about 8, 10 hours. It was all
Okay.
day. Yeah. Okay.
But you weren't out there on a patrol for 2 weeks or something
No,
like
it
that?
was nothing
No.
like.
Okay.
It was just kind of a joyride, I guess, but it wasn't so joyful at times.
All right. Did you get to ride on any of the aircraft, or...
No, not really.
Now, you do have some pictures of yourself climbing around on some of the planes and that kind of thing.
Well, my buddies and I, we had to have something to do. So, and it was pretty wide open, all over. You could walk on the airfields and see whatever was there. So we were horsed around by these planes. So that's why I got the picture.
All right. So, yeah, what was there to do? I guess you watched movies, you climb around on planes.
Yeah, well, the Red Cross ran well, I don't know what you'd call it, but anyway, it was a charitable thing for the service people. And they would have different events there, and the donuts and like that, it was. I remember at Red Cross grounds there at one time, I think it was Hank Greenberg and Bobby Feller was there playing ball, exhibition ball. So that was kind of fun to see them guys,
And did people play a lot of baseball just to kill time, or?
Not really. I mean, no. I don't know where the time went, really. We done a lot of horsing around. I mean, some of my buddies there requisitioned a Jeep from the Air Force. And so we had a Jeep, they repainted it. So we had our own convenience, we could drive around. But, yeah.
All right. Now, the unit that you were serving with, I mean, how was that organized? Who did you report to? Who did you work with?
Well, there were 4 people that done this boiler thing, and we done each an 8-hour shift. But as long as we kept the boiler going, we never seen anybody. I mean, we didn't even know who our chief was or anything.
Right.
We didn't know. We just kept the boiler cranking, and evidently nobody else cared as long as they had chow.
All right. Now, while you were out there, did you get regular communication from home? Did you write back and forth?
We had letters, yeah. Backtracking a little, when I first got there, you had temporary jobs, and one of them was unloading trucks of mail, sorting it and stowing it away in a gigantic area. Each ship had a specific space for their mail, so when the ships would come into port, they could pick their mail up and have it. Well, I was unloading this ship, and I come across 2 bags of mail for the USS Indianapolis. And I knew if something had happened, but that was pretty secretive, a lot of it. So I lugged the mail and put it in a slop that said USS Indianapolis, but it wasn't until later I found out really what happened. Why the mail was there after the ship went down, I don't know, but I think a lot of it was just shipped to maybe a main base somewhere, so then the ships would pick it up when they came through there. So,
Well, the regular system, and they weren't counting on having the ship go down.
yeah.
Right. Now, are there particular people that you were good friends with there?
I had quite a few buddies, and I kept in contact with them. In fact, I'm the one that kept the flow going. There was about 6 of us. One of them from Euclid, Ohio. One from St. John, Kansas, I think. And just little towns all over, I wrote them letters for a while, but a lot of them has passed away. As far as I know, there's only a couple of them left now. Yeah, but that's what you had. You know, that helped you survive, your buddies. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, was there anything else that you sort of did to fill the time with? I mean, did you play cards? Did you read a lot? Or?
Oh, we played cards, and one of our Quonset mate buddies had a couple of monkeys.
Mm-hmm.
we played with the monkeys, and I don't know where the time went, and we traveled around the island, nosing around. And
Mm-hmm. Now, was that a little bit dangerous to do, or were there just places you
Well,
didn't go?
I didn't know it was dangerous
Mm-hmm.
at the time. There was a typhoon coming in, and our base was just about sitting in the water. It was right next to the submarine base, so we had to abandon the base and go up in the mountains. Well, you didn't have a scheduled taxi or anything. You jumped in the truck you could find someone there was going that way, so you went. You know, so we went up there, and myself and another buddy was out adventuring in the jungle, and we thought we stayed pretty close to where we belonged, but evidently we got wandering too far, and we went back and found everybody was gone.
Mm-hmm.
So here we're out there, and it's getting dark, and you got these Japanese snipers out there. We were getting kind of nervous, I'll tell you. So we finally found a ride back. Thankfully, you know.
Okay. Are there any other particular events or things that happen to you that tend to come back to you about the time you spent on there?
Yes. After the war ended, the whole 7th Fleet had never been assembled together because they were all over the South Pacific, you know, fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went to bed one night and the harbor was empty. And I got up the next morning and there it was, the whole 7th Fleet. I'll tell you, that's pretty impressive. There's a USS Missouri sitting there about, you know, you look up to see this thing, and aircraft carriers and destroyers and cruisers. It was just amazing. I think perhaps that was the only time that the whole 7th Fleet was ever together. They sailed from the you know, the truce, the signing in Japan as a group, and of course Guam was their first stop for oil supplies. So I think that's why they were there.
Right.
But that was something to see. I'd sure like to have a picture of that.
All right. Now, how did you find out you got to go home?
Well, they published there was a newspaper there called the Nob Hill News, which was just for the local sailors. And they would publish a list every day when they were starting to ship us out. And then they would say what ships will be in from where, you know. They'd stop at different islands and pick up guys and when they'd be in. And then they notified us, so you'll probably on such and ship, you know. So eagerly we read this newspaper, and there it was.
Okay. Also, while I think of it, Guam, you know, it had been an American territory.
Yes.
There were probably some U.S. civilians there when the Japanese got there. There was also a native population there.
I wasn't aware of the U.S. civilians, but I was aware of the native population, Chamorros they call them. And there were a lot of them there, but there was not much
Contact,
communication between the Navy forbidden, you know, and probably justly so, I don't know. But they were quite subjected to Japanese rule. I remember, I think I've seen it on a video somewhere, that as the Americans were invading, they were executing the Chamorros. I mean, somewhere I got a video that shows 6 of them laying beheaded because they were supporting the Americans. And
Right.
the Japanese were slaughtering them as the invasion started. So yeah, it was just terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible thing.
Right. Now, could you, on the island itself, and did you see much signs that there had been a war there? Were there damaged buildings or things like that?
Oh, it was all damaged buildings, actually. That Agana Cathedral was all blown to pieces. The Pan American Airways Terminal, which was not a very large building at all, that was all blown to pieces. And there were the only signs of buildings were temporary structures like Quonset huts and like that the services had put up. And further out and in the mountains, there were some grass type of structures with steel sides, a lot of them that the natives lived in. But there wasn't much left.
All right. Now, when you did ship out, what kind of ship were you on, or how did you get back?
But that was another troop ship. That was, I think the name of it was the McIntyre. APA it was. Interesting thing that happened there after we were out to sea, I don't know, 2 or 3 days or something like that. I'm down in the bottom of the ship, you know, and all of a sudden general quarters. So, God, I thought this war was over a long time ago, you know. So I recognized what it was, and a lot of the other guys didn't. So I'm up that ladder. I mean, you got 3 sets of ladders to get it to the deck. I'm going up there. So I go flying up the ladder. I get out there, and everybody had their assigned places to be assembled, you know. So I went over there, and this ship is circling like this. Large circles. And I finally found out what's going on. Well, luckily, some lookout spotted 2 mines floating in the ocean, you know. So I give them guys a lot of credit. We could have got them blown right off the map. So we circled them, and they shot at them with 20 millimeter anti-aircraft guns. One of them sunk, and the other one blew up. And boy, did that ship rock! I'll tell you, it was. So on the way back, that was a highlight.
Right. That was your excitement.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, did you sail straight back to California, or did you stop anywhere?
We went right back to California. We went back to San Francisco. We sailed out of San Diego and back into San Francisco. Yeah.
All right. And then what did you do once you got off the ship?
Oh, most of us went and got a haircut. And we horsed around and see the town like that. You know.
Did they discharge you there, or did they send you back to Great Lakes?
No,
or?
they sent us from San Francisco back to Great Lakes, and there was discharged there. Yeah.
And then at that point, you were on inactive reserve for the next year or something
For a
like that?
while, yeah. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what did you do once you got back home?
Well, I was kind of at loose ends. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I worked on the farm for a while, out by Marne, and I didn't think I wanted to do that anymore. Once you've been through something like that, I mean, your perspective changes quite a lot, you know. So I went to a trade school, electrical school in Chicago, under the GI Bill. So I learned the electrical trade somewhat, and after that I came home, and I was employed by a consumer's power company, which is consumer energy today. So I worked there quite a while after that.
All right.
The lady you just met was my childhood sweetheart, you might say, and she was the one at the train depot when I left. So we've been hanging in there for a long time.
Quite a long time.
Yeah.
All right. So you said a little bit about the story. How do you think overall your time in the service wound up affecting you?
I think it had a tremendous effect on me. At the time, I didn't feel it was that great or anything. But as I look back on it, it changed my whole life. I would never have went to electrical school
Mhm.
and got that training if I hadn't got it under the GI Bill, you know. And it just opened my world up, and
Mhm.
it stayed open since then. I mean, we do a lot of traveling now, and we love it.
Mhm. Yeah, because there are people who will spend their whole lives in West Michigan, and even a lot of the college students that I teach out here. I mean, the farthest they may ever have gone was Chicago or Detroit or something, and some of them don't venture very far outside of Ottawa County,
Well,
and that's even now.
we go.
Mhm.
We've been to England. I'd never drive there again, I'll tell you. I was a nervous wreck. We didn't generally go on tours. We'd rent a car because there's particular places we wanted to be, you know. So my wife had relatives in England, and we found the areas that they came from, which was quite fascinating, you know. And then we've been to Germany twice. We found relatives there that were quite surprised, and we were too, and we were very welcome. And we found out that the German people really like Americans. I mean, I wondered how they felt after World War II,
Mm-hmm.
but they're very happy that the United States took over there instead of Russia.
Mm-hmm. Well, you even made it to Russia, didn't you?
I made it to Russia. That was about a year and a half ago, and happened to get a good deal on a tour, and it was a very good tour. Very good people conducting the tour. We flew into St. Petersburg, from Stockholm to St. Petersburg, and the tour guides met us there, and then we got on we toured St. Petersburg, and then we got on a river boat, and we came from St. Petersburg down the Russian waterway to Moscow.
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen a lot of little towns and got off the boat, and we've seen how the Russians live, and it's pretty tough for some of them. And we had a very good reception. I mean, in Moscow, we were invited to their war museum. I think they called it the Patriots Museum.
Yep.
I don't remember the name of it for
Well,
sure.
they call the war the Great Patriotic War, so it quite likely would be the Patriots Museum or something like
Yes.
that.
So we had the privilege of meeting several veterans from the war. Of course, they couldn't speak English. And I couldn't speak Russian, but there was a camaraderie and a communication there. You just felt it, and they were very sincere people. When we got there, there was a band on the front of the museum playing the Star Spangled Banner. They took us through their Russian War Museum and showed us the equipment that they had gotten in support from the United States. And I don't know, I just like most of the people I met. There's no animosity to me towards the Russian people. I think they've had it tough, and I can understand some of the things they did. I think it enlightened me.
Yeah. But by and large, most of the people don't have any particular reason to not like Americans and so forth.
They don't.
Yeah.
They don't. They're so busy living their own life, and they said that.
Yeah.
They don't think much about the United States. But I was impressed with Moscow. That is something else. I mean, that is a one-going town. Cars all over the place.
And so in part, you're there and you're seeing that.
Incidentally, when we were at St. Petersburg, which was Stalingrad at the
Leningrad.
time. Leningrad, excuse me. We drove through the area where the Germans laid siege to the barriers and things are still there, you know, intentionally probably, I don't know. And I couldn't help but thinking of a story that I guess they'd be some sort of a cousin in Germany that we looked up. Well, he was 16 years old, and he was in the siege, you know, of
At Leningrad?
St. Petersburg, Leningrad, and he was wounded there. So there you have I mean, such a contrast. You think
Mhm.
about that. One of my relatives in Germany was wounded there. He was only 16 years
Mhm.
old. You know, he was really a kid. I
Yeah.
was 17. I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, then when we were over there in Germany, I got to talk to him, and I got some pictures from him, and he told me this story. Never knew about it before. Of course, no one here knew we had any relatives
Mhm.
over there till my wife's research
Right.
found it. Are you familiar with the name Armagh at all?
That's a county in
They're up in
Northern
Fruit
Ireland.
Ridge area. They're farmers in
Oh,
Fruit
okay.
Ridge, apples and like that. Anyway, uh, then in Germany it's Ermac
Mm-hmm.
instead of Armagh.
Right.
Armagh. So that's why they never found them. But my wife found that the name had been changed.
Mhm.
So we went over there and visited them. Quite an experience. This fellow, this German 16-year-old, he never told his family what had happened
Mm-hmm.
till we started talking to him, and he dug out these pictures.
Wow.
And he started to cry, and he told his son what had happened. His son never knew
Mm-hmm.
he'd been in that battle or anything. It's
Yeah. So
quite
it's
an emotional.
pretty
thing.
remarkable experience to
Yes.
take part in there. Yeah.
Mhm.
And largely, you're there in part anyway because of that experience that you'd had back when you were 17 that made you look out to the rest of the world and think it might be worth going to see.
Yeah,
All right.
right.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you want to add to the record here before we close out the interview? I think you've done a pretty good job covering things here.
Okay, turn the camera off.
All right.
I,
All right then. Well, we did manage to cover what you asked me about when the camera was off. So I guess I'd just like to thank you for taking the time to talk to me this morning.
well, I appreciate you coming over. I feel real comfortable working with you. And if you want me to, maybe I can find some more people for the interview.
Very much appreciate that. All right.